Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Tahir Dhindsa and you are watching SDTV. Development has its notions and its downside. During the last century and a half, the world has developed and become a global village. But the downside is that we have put enormous pressure on the environment, which is now at least is unsustainable. Because of the fossil fuel and all that, hydrocarbons and coal, all fossil fuel, we have brought the global temperature to an extent where we fear that the glaciers would melt, where we fear that the sea level will rise and it is going to submerge beautiful towns like Karachi, Dhaka, Thailand and New York, the whole country, Netherlands is below the sea level, so they will have their own downside on that. And other things, agriculture practices is gone, food security, everything is attached to the environment and we are threatening it. Basically, we are threatening ourselves. Now, the global leaders of all sorts have assembled and they annually, assembled at a conference called Conference of Parties, all parties, NGOs, governments, energy producers, everyone assemble and they want to chalk out a pathway. One of the things which has come as a very radiant thing during this COP at Baku is carbon markets. Can you reduce the carbon footprint and get the credit? And what are their Article 6 and its implementation? We have today with us a very able researcher, Minha Hanif, who is working with a company, and she's researching on all these things, how to walk the talk, how to implement what has been decided at the conference of leaders. Minha, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Say something on what I've just said and we'll
You've actually covered the basics quite well. So Conference of Parties is like each country is a party to the Paris Agreement, and we've been seeing a lot of talk on climate finance, on how to actually tackle all of the problems that climate change is causing. And Pakistan is a party to this conference. So one of the main points that everybody was looking forward to was Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And Article 6 actually talks about carbon markets, which is how to actually, like you said, walk the talk, how to actually implement projects that sort of tackle climate change. Yeah.
Do you think, what are the difficulties of the way?
So when we think of climate change, we know that this is caused by fossil fuels. Like we would think that developed countries may be polluted, and all of us are bearing the consequences and bearing the brunt. So the question lies with who is responsible and how do we tackle this problem. So this is where carbon markets came into play. We thought about quantifying the problem. We thought about, we know that climate change is happening and we want to limit the rise in temperature. So for that, we need to see how much carbon dioxide has been pumped into the atmosphere and how much do we need to limit it. So a part of the Paris Agreement says that we need to limit it by 2 degrees centigrade and preferably, if possible, stop it by 1.5 degrees.
Carbon markets. Think these two landmark icons are still implementable?
So, of course it is. Human beings have always found a way. We've always found the innovations, the discoveries to get there, get to the target that we set. So we saw this when there was a hole in the ozone layer, and we took all of these precautions and made all of these policies that limited the use of CFCs, and now the hole in the ozone layer is back on track to being repaired. So I have full faith in our experts, in our scientists, and obviously it all comes down to the policies on how quickly we can achieve such targets, but I really think it is possible.
Article 6 has been operationalized. Would you briefly, for the benefit of our audience, touch upon a few of the main clauses?
So, yeah. So we talk about Article 6.2, 6.4, 6.8, but I think we don't talk enough about the very first paragraph, which is 6.1. And the very main basic idea behind is that all of such practices and all of these measures are voluntary. So there's no body right now that is forcing you to take any action. All of this is voluntary. And all of the parties in the Paris Agreement are voluntary taking part, right? So 6.1 says that all of these measures are going to be voluntary. And then we talk about 6.2, which is bilateral agreements between countries, between parties. How does the climate finance flow? Where would the projects take place? Then we have 6.4. 6.4 is about the same sort of mechanism between parties, but the UNFCCC is a supervisory body. So everything that will happen will be governed by the UNFCCC. And then we have 6.8, which is the non-finance mechanisms. And by that we mean capacity building and such stuff that countries can share with each other and help each other get.
That is very important, but why it has been delayed for so long, for at least for a decade?
Yeah, you're right. So I think we basically began this in the Paris Agreement of 2015, and the carbon markets has been operationalized in COP29 now in Baku. So it's quite a long period of time. I think 9 years is a lot more than it should have been, to be quite frank with you. And I think the reason being is that with CDM, there was a lot to learn from it, and we saw a lot of problems that were not expected, and we were just learning from it. And one of the main things is that what we saw in the voluntary market is, we call it the integrity of the carbon, which was questionable. We saw projects in Amazon, in Kenya, where credits were sold for like millions and millions of dollars, but when the journalist came on the ground to see what was going on, and they found that it was not the impact that was being paid for. So that raised a lot of trees. Yeah, they were deforestation was still rampant, and you're still selling credits to Googles and Microsofts of the world. So obviously there was a sort of distrust that was being developed in the carbon markets, and we were still figuring out how to bring that element of transparency, bring that trust back. And with that, we also saw the formation of bodies such as the ICVCM. So such bodies, and even Vera has released its own labels for assessing the integrity of the carbon. And we have principles like the 10 core carbon principles, which talk about additionality, transparency, sustainable development, like how do we focus on the co-benefits. Because carbon markets is not just about the money, is it? It's not just about just pumping in the dollars and then measuring the carbon impact. It has to be a lot more than that. It has to be about the communities where these projects are taking place, because otherwise it's not actually impactful. So I think that the delay was basically to figure out how do we bring that trust back in the carbon markets, so that when the policies are formed, we have all of these things in our mind.
Yeah, that's very comprehensive, I understand. But what Pakistan has, I mean, what is there for Pakistan?
So Pakistan is a very good place geographically, and the kind of communities that we have for such carbon projects. But at the same time, our policy is very nascent. It just came out. I mean, we've just seen the first draft of the carbon market policy. So it's a long way. It's a long way to go. But I think that the benefit that we have is that we can develop such projects for probably much lower cost, which gives us this opportunity to be much competitive in the carbon market. So for the same kind of project that might cost, let's say per credit it's $10 in Kenya, maybe it could be done for $5 per credit in Pakistan. So we're very well positioned, I feel like, in terms of the range of projects that we can do, as well as the price at which we can develop it.
So what are the priorities? How to prioritize the implement? Obviously, there should be something which is very close to which as a first step. Yeah. Second, how should we prioritize as 1, 2, 3?
Right. So that's a good question. I feel like I'll come back to the point of being competitive, right?
Right.
So we need to make sure that our policies are not just a guideline. They also include the rules of the carbon projects that we develop. Right. It has to be very consistent so that, for example, if there's an investor in Singapore, he should not think when he looks at Pakistan that there's some political instability. So maybe it's better to invest somewhere like in Rwanda where it might not happen. So I think the first step is actually laying out the ground rules and making a consistent standard for project developers within Pakistan. And the second point is I think that we need to also facilitate the project developers, but as well as other parties, the other experts that can provide the technical sort of expertise that is needed for a good project. So maybe there could be a tech company that can come up with its own monitoring, reporting, verification that's called MRV in carbon markets. Maybe somebody can develop a tool that can make this more consistent, that makes the projects more transparent.
The regulation making the framework for the project.
Framework for the projects. For example, we've seen the policy, the draft policy. It mentions that there is going to be a national level cell for carbon markets.
Any recommendation from your side as an expert, as a person who is professionally watching is from a very close quarter?
I think that we should have a very specific playbooks for the kind of projects that can be done in Pakistan. And before even that, I think we need to prioritize the areas of the NDCs that we have committed to the Paris Agreement. So maybe we have renewable energy, we have afforestation, we have EVs. So I think this is the very key sectors that we need to focus on right now. And what we need to do at this stage is develop maybe playbooks for such projects that can facilitate project developers within Pakistan, which can sort of tell them what our competitors are going for and what the investors look for, and how to develop an end-to-end project, right from the pre-feasibility to feasibility, and then project design, and how do we do MRV, how do we register. So I think once it's in a standard format, it will be easier for a lot of us to move on.
Last question I ask, are you hopeful? Do you have hope? Do you think that Pakistan is, I'm not asking you about the rest of the world, but do you think we are pitched at a place where Pakistan can actually achieve something, if not everything?
So, of course, I am hopeful because, like I said, there's a lot of scope in Pakistan for very good community-based projects. And this could be something that can finally have the climate finance that we need flowing in the country. And now that we have bodies such as the ICVCM and Vera and Gold Standard, we know what kind of projects actually make that impact, leave that impact. So Pakistan is very well positioned to make the most out of carbon markets. So I am hopeful.
Minha, thank you very much for sparing sizable time for this program. And the bottom line is that it's a global change. It's not related to Pakistan alone, but Pakistan among the community of nations is poised at a place where with some seriousness and some thoughtfulness, Pakistan can achieve a lot, if not everything, but achieve a lot. But the bottom line is that we must involve communities. Communities should not be left out, because everyone should accept that as their own agenda, and it should be done with the help of the communities. And that's all for now. See you in the next program. Bye for now.